This is my 55th blog, and I prepared some themes. Okay, so I prepared some topics for the small talks to do in this video. So I try to find topics to be more popular science fiction like. I don't want to retell the plot of the movies, action movies or fantastic movies I watch all the time, or I don't want just to talk about my abstract thoughts on some matter. I liked the way the school was, because I learned some real materials in the way of scientific representation. So I could retell this material, and it wasn't just my random thoughts on some subject, but it was real facts about the surrounding reality or the environment where we all live. So for example, I got this story. I recorded this story about Francis of Assisi. I think that he is the guy who wrote some memoirs or the books about like personal diaries, and he published them. Maybe I can be wrong, but I remember the story about some guy who had very joyful life, and then he changed his mind and became almost a priest, maybe, and then he was named a saint. Maybe it was about Francis of Assisi, but I recall one particular story about him mowing his garden. And I remember this particular story in Russian with some commentary about it. And in English, I found several different variations of the story, like he was hoeing his garden. In other materials, he was hoeing the rows of the beans. And when someone asked Francis of Assisi about what his actions would be if he knew that he would die in the evening, or if he knew that he would live only the rest of the day. And Francis of Assisi answered that he would continue to hoe these rows of beans. And it was the exact translation in English that I wanted to find, because first I found the this translation in English, like Francis of Assisi said that he would finish hoeing his garden. But in the commentaries for my Russian story that I read, there was one particular moment that someone who gave these commentaries, he noted maybe that Francis of Assisi didn't said that he would start doing something important, like maybe writing a will or giving his last order to his friends, or spending his time with his friends. And according to these commentaries, he didn't say that he would finish, that he would hurry to finish hoeing this rows of beans, because he was perfectly comfortable with the process he was doing, and so he didn't want to change it to other activity, because what he was doing at that moment was of the most important activity in the world for him. That's why he didn't want to change it to some other activity, for the last day of his life. And he didn't want to hurry and finish this activity, because the speed of the process with which he was hoeing the beans, the speed was perfect for him. It's like he was at the moment of then and there, and he didn't want to change anything in this process, and he was completely comfortable to perform this process until he reached two options. Either he would die before finishing this hoeing of the beans with the speed he was performing this, or he would finish this hoeing of the beans with his constant speed, but it would be just because the amount of these beans was small enough to finish the process before he died. Well, I think in Russian the idea was more concise, but I can't express it better. The only thing that I want to say that the quotation, the variant of this story where he would finish hoeing these rows of the beans, is not very correct, because it looks like he would hurry. He will hurry, or he would hurry to finish this particular process. So this was my attempt to express in English a real story of Francis of Assisi, the story that I like, and the story that have a real relationship to the real world, because this is a well-known historical fact. It's not my thoughts about it. It's not the plot of the movie that was created by some script writers. Yeah, this was the real fact, and I want to get enough vocabulary to express all these interesting real facts from the history, from the past, or from something around us, like from the science or technology, which is contemporary for us. Yeah, express it in English. Well, I learned lots of this stuff in Russian when I was, during my school, as the additional materials. I read different books, and I liked this stuff of additional knowledge very much. But right now, it's not very useful to repeat this stuff, to record this stuff in Russian, because it won't help me to improve my professional skills, or it won't make the time that I spend on my chores at home smaller. But when I do the same stuff in English, I practice my English and I recall the stuff from my memory. So, English is the main reason why, well, on one hand, English is one reason why I'm interested in this type of stuff, and on the other hand, to practice my English, I need some materials about which I can talk a lot without thinking about these materials, but just practicing to find words to express these materials. And this type of knowledge is quite perfect for this activity. I remember this moment from the Big Bang Theory when they created penny blossoms for Penny, when she decided to create this stuff that you can put in your hair. So she decided to produce this stuff and to sell it online through Amazon, I think, or through some site that they created. And Sheldon and each of the guys gave some ideas what to add for her penny blossom theme to make it even better. And Sheldon suggested to add the Bluetooth. She asked, why is the Bluetooth? And Sheldon answered, Penny, everything is better with Bluetooth. So I wanted to say that all the stuff that I learned in my childhood and in my youth, and all the stuff that has no real connection to the world, because it doesn't make me happy as the movies that I watch right now, and it doesn't improve my knowledge in my professional skills. But this stuff is quite alright with English when I express it, when I tell it in English. So with English everything is better. Okay, it was a long start. Yeah, another stuff I wanted to say is that I try to go back to the science knowledge, basic science knowledge from the school years that can be used, or that I think about from time to time during my everyday life. Like, I don't use, for example, geometry. I don't use lots of postulates. I never use any postulates or theorems from geometry when I studied at school. But some basic ideas like a circle, a triangle, a rectangle, plane, parallel lines, perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines. Then angles. Then axes, x and y, and different graphs with straight line, parabola, maybe hyperbola. Okay, all of this stuff I can use in my conversation. I can use all the stuff in my conversation from time to time, and I want to, because I like it, because I can make some comparisons with this particular stuff, and I want to have this vocabulary. I want to have this stuff in my English vocabulary, and to do this I need to read basics of geometry, mathematics, physics, biology. Got the most useful stuff for me. Like, for example, when I describe the flower, I can describe the stem, this thing, the main thing, like the bud of the flower, the petals around it. So for example, if I want to talk how bees fly over the meadow, then they got to any flower, they this thing, the bud or something, is open. During the daytime, the bee sit in the center of the flower, collect the I don't know this word. It's very common word as well. Collect it, and then the bee moves to the other flower, and again to the other, and then it brings this thing, this substance, back to his hive, where they create honey. Well, the process is very simple. I didn't describe some scientific stuff, just bases. And even for these bases, I don't have enough words. So my current goal is to get enough words to describe this type of bases, yeah, in English. For example, there are two types of geometry: plane geometry and solid geometry. Plane geometry describes the shapes on the plane, or the points in these shapes belong to or lie within one plane. And we can name several the most popular shapes on the plane, like a square, rectangle, a triangle, a circle, a line, a ray, and a dot. And that's alright. I won't go into polygons because it's not for everyday use. What else? Yeah, these shapes have areas and perimeter. For example, the area of a square, the area of a square equals to the product. Okay, equals to the squared side of the square. Squared side, okay. Or equals to the product of two sides. And because those sides are equal for the square, it's like side to the power of 2. If my terms, my vocabulary is correct. Okay. What was that? Okay, the area. The area of a circle equals 2 multiplied by p multiplied by radius multiplied by radius, or the radius squared. The area of a triangle equals to a product of the base side of the triangle multiplied, the product of a base side of the triangle and the height of the triangle. No, and for example, to describe some the perimeter of a triangle equals to the sum of all 3 sides of the triangle. Or for example, to draw a bisector for an angle, you need to draw you need to draw a ray that originates in the vertex of this angle and goes within this angle between the sides of this angle in such a way that two angles between this ray and 2 angles. One is between the ray and these 2 sides of the angle. These 2 angles should be equal. And then we say that we constructed the bisector of the angle. Or for solid geometry, we have the shapes in the space, not on the plane, but in the space, like cone, cylinder, cone, parallel, cube. Okay, a cube. And for these shapes, we can calculate additional. We can calculate the perimeter, but we can calculate the area of the shapes, and we can calculate the volume of these shapes. And then I can describe the formulas to calculate the shapes of the basic objects like the cube. So there is no rocket science here, but and everything is quite simple. I don't need very difficult words, shades, or other stuff, but I need quite specific words. They are basic for everyday life, but they are not basic for fiction books that I read, or maybe for newspapers or just movies like animes that I watched. But in real life, these words are very useful and quite common, like the words for cooking the lentils, washing the dishes, are quite common in our everyday life, but you can really rare hear these words while watching movies, reading books. Okay, so I just said about little about geometry, and the next stuff, it's almost the same. It goes to physics, and it's about this density, volume, and mass. These three notions are connected, and we can calculate one of the variables, one of the values of this notion, if we know two other values. For example, if we know the mass and the volume of some piece of wood, we can calculate the density of this piece of wood by dividing the mass over the volume. Or if we know the density and the volume, then the product of these two gives us the mass. And knowing the mass and the density and dividing the mass over the density, we can calculate the volume. It's very basic stuff for physics. When you study to learn mechanics, I think, in the middle school, you have this, and you got these basic notions, terms, and you learn them for the first time, and they give you these small tasks when you can to do the stuff that I just did, like you have two variables and you need to calculate the third variable. But it's very powerful for practicing English. Because I really think like well-grounded, because I don't just use the words in English. I use the real notions, the real things, terms from science, and these terms describe the real world, not just some actions from the book, some adjectives, but the real thing that is scientifically proved, and that you can get through some measurements, some simple experiments, and it really creates the foundation that I want to build for my English knowledge. Like in the end I want to say that even knowing almost all general vocabulary from the dictionary and understanding lots of books, movies, the real life is based on these things that that originates at school. Basic notions from physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, geography. All the names of the countries originates from, or maybe I learned from geography. All the proper names of the persons and events were taught in history classes, like Napoleon, Buddha, World War the Second, some rise in Japan, everything, and all this stuff is kind of specific with proper names, like some elements from the periodic table, and it's like getting a big additional vocabulary, which is quite specific, because you don't get it through ordinary books, but you can't just talk to someone discussing news, maybe some popular TV shows about history that you watched on TV, without using all these proper names, geographical names, as I said, terms from physics, chemistry, history. So I want to create this foundation for me, and to do this I'm going to read something and then create these monologues about these particular topics. So this is my current goal, and I'm going to check as the process will go during my next, let's say, 5 videos, until I reach my 60th video. And for today, that's all.